Beneath the endless Montana sky, where the wind carried whispers of hope and hardship, 18-year-old Eliza Thorne stood on the creaking porch of her family's sagging homestead. Her auburn hair caught the last rays of a fading sun, and her heart raced like a colt spooked by thunder. It was 1892, and her father, broken by a string of failed crops and mounting debts, had made a desperate bargain. Eliza, pure and untouched, was to wed Harlan Blackwood, a widowed rancher with 3 children and a heart hardened by loss. As the wagon lurched away, carrying her toward an uncertain future, Eliza clutched a worn shawl, her only shield against the unknown. She was no bride seeking love, but a girdle traded for survival. Yet, in the dusty folds of that rugged land, a story of compassion and transformation was about to unfold, one that would leave the entire valley breathless with wonder. Harlan Blackwood cut an imposing figure, his weathered face carved by 40 years of toil and tragedy. 2 winters ago, Eddie buried his wife, Clara, taken by a fever that left the ranchero silent. His children, 10-year-old Lila, mischievous 7-year-old Ben, and brooding 13-year-old Caleb, were like wildflowers struggling in rocky soil, desperate for care Harlan couldn't provide. The townsfolk clucked their tongues, saying the children needed a mother, and Harlan, drowning in grief, needed a partner to keep the ranch afloat. When Eliza stepped off the wagon, her boots sinking into the dry earth, Harlan met her with a curt nod. "Miss Thorne," he said, his voice like gravel. "This ain't no fairy tale. The kids need tendin', the house needs keepin'. That's the deal." Inside, the ranch house smelled of stale smoke and sorrow, and the children's stares ranged from Lila's shy curiosity to Caleb's outright defiance. Eliza felt like an intruder, her dreams of adventure replaced by the weight of duty. The early days were a gauntlet of chores and mistrust. Eliza rose with the roosters, hauling water, scrubbing pots, and stitching torn breeches. Harlan was a shadow, working the fields till dark and sleeping in the hayloft, as if the house held too many ghosts. Eliza, who'd grown up with a father's stern hand and emote their surly grave, turned her heart toward the children. Lala warned first, trailing Eliza like a shadow, asking for songs about rivers and stars. Ben, ever the trickster, hid her sewing needles or swapped salt for sugar, but Eliza countered with patience, teaching him to braid rope for the horses. Caleb, however, was a fortress of anger. "You're nothing to us," he spat one evening, kicking over a chair after Eliza tried to mend his torn coat. She met his glare with steady eyes. "Maybe not yet, Caleb. But I'm here, and I ain't leaving. Tell me about your ma, what made her laugh?" The question hung like a fragile thread, and though Caleb stormed off, Eliza saw a flicker of something softer in his eyes. Winter swept in with a vengeance, bringing a storm that buried the ranch in snow deeper than a man's height. The pantry grew lean, the cattle bellowed in distress, and Harlan, stubborn as ever, ventured out to secure the barn. Hours passed with no sign of him, and fear called in Eliza's chest. "Stay put," she told the children, bundling them by the fire before pulling on Harlan's oversized coat. The blizzard stung her face as she trudged through drifts, following faint boot prints to the barn. There, Harlan lay slumped against a post, his ankle swollen from a fall, his hands blue with cold. "Leave me," he growled, pride battling pain. But Eliza boldn't to hear it. With grit she didn't know she had, she rigged a sling from old sacks and dragged him back, her breath ragged against the howling wind. Inside, she warmed his hands with her own, brewed tea from dried herbs, and sat vigil through the night. As the storm raged, Harlan's eyes met hers, softened by gratitude. "Why risk it?" he murmured. Eliza's answer was simple, yet profound. "Because you're mine to care for now. I love you." The storm's end marked a turning point, like spring after a long frost. Harlan began to linger in the house, sharing stories of Clara, her love for wildflowers, her knack for calming spooked horses. Eliza reciprocated, confessing her own loneliness, her childhood spent dreaming of a world beyond the plow. The children, sensing the shift, wove Eliza into their lives. Ben stopped his pranks, instead carving a wooden bird under her guidance. Lala braided Eliza's hair, giggling as she tucked in daisies. Even Caleb softened, one night handing her a tattered journal. "Ma wrote poems," he said, voice low. "You might like 'em." Eliza read aloud by the fire, her voice giving life to Clara's words, and the family felt whole for the first time. But the secret loomed. Eliza discovered she was with child, a fragile new life born of quiet moments with Harlan. Joy mingled with fear, Would this baby bind them closer, or reopen old wounds? Spring arrived, painting the plains with color, but brought news that tested Elisa's resolve. A letter from her father, now bedridden and deeper in debt, begged her to return or send money. Harlin, his limp a reminder of the storm, offered her freedom. You don't owe me, Elisa. Go if you must. The children overheard, their faces etched with dread. Caleb, usually stoic, grabbed her hand. You can't leave us. Eliza stood at the edge of the corral, watching the horizon where her old life lay. That night, under a sky ablaze with stars, she made her choice. She gathered the family, tore the letter to pieces, and tossed them into the wind. This is my home, she said, her voice steady. Jure my home. Arlan's rough hand clasped hers, and Lila's arms wrapped around her waist, while Ben Hoopt and Caleb managed a rare smile. The ranch felt alive, its heart beating anew. But the true miracle came in summer, when a merciless drought scorched the valley. Crops withered, streams dried, and Arlan's herd faltered. Then came an unexpected windfall, a small inheritance from an uncle Eliza barely remembered, enough to save the ranch. Most would have hoarded it, but Eliza saw the suffering beyond their gate. We're not alone in this, she told Harlan. They opened their well to neighbors, shared feed with struggling ranchers, and turned the barn into a gathering place for communal meals. Caleb, inspired, rallied the local children to rebuild the Guidop's fence. Ben fixed broken cartwheels for free. Lila's drawings, pinned in every home, became beacons of hope. Word spread, and the valley buzzed with tales of the young bride who they transformed a grieving family and a parched community. The emotional crescendo came at the county harvest festival, lanterns swaying under a velvet sky. A weathered farmer, once skeptical of Arlan's new wife, stood before the crowd. We thought Eliza was just a girl, traded like cattle. But she's shown us what it means to give without counting the cost. His voice broke as he recounted how her shared well saved his land. Harlan, eyes shining, pulled Eliza close. I thought I was giving you a roof, he whispered. But you gave us a life. The children rushed to her, Lila calling her Ma for the first time, Caleb's hug fierce with pride. The crowd cheered, not for scandal, but for the shock of selfless love that had reshaped their world. Elisa, her hand on her swelling belly, felt the weight of their gratitude, a testament to the power of one heart to mend many. By autumn, as golden leaves danced across the ranch, Eliza gave birth to a daughter, Rosie, whose laughter filled the house like music. Harlan, no longer a man adrift, taught the boys to mend fences while Eliza and Lila tended a garden bursting with Clara's favorite wildflowers. The valley thrived, its people bound by a shared strength kindled by Elisa's compassion. Her Historia, whispered from porch to porch, became a legend, not of a girl given away, but of a woman who gave everything. Across the USA, her tale resonates as a reminder, in the harshest times, kindness is a seed that grows beyond measure, rooting us in hope and humanity's enduring light.